Next, let's talk about France, guys. Certainly the biggest changes to any squad featured right here in this French team. There are so many questions to be answered, guys, and I am looking forward in particular on how this French rugby team will perform in this tournament. Total of 19 uncapped players selected for this French rugby team. Significant sweeping changes throughout this squad. There is a new coach, there is a new captain. Guys, this is a new look French rugby team. So let's start from the top. Let's talk about Fabien Galthié. So he's a former player. Those who follow rugby will know he was a great player, a real maverick style player. But what's exciting about Galthié is he is certainly a rock star in French rugby. And he looks like someone who can really galvanise both public, the rugby public, as well as the general public behind this French rugby team. I think having him as a head coach is a masterstroke. Given the turmoil that we've seen in French rugby, he is one guy I'm expecting to pull them all together. Now, he has made some bold selections in his first squad. As I mentioned, a total of 19 uncapped players. Average age of the squad is 24 years old. Very, very low in terms of average caps in the squad. And an exciting nod to the future and to future development of this French rugby team. Captain Charles Olivon, very, very good player. Those who watched him in the World Cup will know. Great from the loose. And a guy, I think, as well, that can really lead. Well, he's young in terms of only 11 caps to his name in his international rugby career. Not a huge amount of experience, but he's in the mould of all of these great leaders from the loose, right? So he's an uncompromising player. He's well respected in the French rugby scene, and I think it's a great selection as captain. So let's see how he goes. But as I mentioned, there's very much an eye to the future of French rugby with this selection. We know that there is a World Cup in 2023, and we are at the start of the home World Cup cycle for this French rugby team. So they have certainly made their intentions very clear. They are in a development-focused mode with an eye to the future, and in particular to that World Cup. Now, you might look at this and say, that's craziness. How can they be competitive this year? But I need to remind you of a couple of things. France have won the last two under-20s Rugby World Cups, right? So in terms of development, in terms of bringing young players through, their development cycle has been extremely successful. Not only that, but we are seeing a number of these players start to translate into performances at top-level rugby. Romain Ntamack is a great example, right? So came through as the breakthrough player last year in 2019 and is cementing himself as one of the great fly halves in this tournament, right? So I'm expecting big things from him this year. He's certainly got a good head on his shoulders and is a guy who can control both the rugby team as well as field position on the pitch. Now, if we look back to 2019 and we look back to the quarter-final of the Rugby World Cup, my view, France were all over Wales and should have gone on to win that game, right? They certainly had the winning of that game. They had all of the momentum in the first half, and they were looking like they were going to be very difficult to pull in towards the end. We know what happened. Complete brain explosion, elbow to the face, resulting in the red card, made it almost impossible at that point for France to come back and win that game against Wales. But they were on top in a big way. If not for that brain explosion, they could have gone on to win that game. But I think the biggest loss in that game was the injury to Romain Ntamack just at the end of the first half and him not coming back in the second half. It was very close, that game, towards the end, but I honestly believe that Ntamack, if he had been on the field, France may have got home in that game. Now, we'll never know, right? And all of this is speculation. We know ultimately how it ended. But what I'm saying is that there is a lot of ability in this team. They could very easily have gone to be semi-finalists last year, right? So we need to keep that in perspective. They're coming through with a development squad that has proven very capable at the lower levels, and they still have world-class players in this squad. A guy like Virimi Vakatawa, right? To me, he is the #1 ball-running rugby player in the game, the most destructive ball-running rugby player in the game. He's right up there with Manu Tuilangi, with guys like Billy Vunipola. Probably not up there with Semi Radradra. I think Semi's on his own level, but Vakatawa is one of the most dangerous players from that centre position with ball in hand in the whole world, right? I think he might lack a little bit in decision making, but certainly with ball in hand, he is unbelievably strong and powerful and seems to always beat the first defender. So He's a guy that they can build around with guys like Romain Intermark with depth and strength like that. In the centres, they are an extremely dangerous team. Not only that, but they're not expected to do much this year. So a French team who's not expected to do too much is a very dangerous prospect. So there is so much here for them to play for. There are a couple of key changes. So Maxime Médard, those who follow French rugby will know that's a name that has been around for a long, long time in French rugby. Great stalwart. I think we may have seen the end of him. Let's wait and see. Certainly getting on in years. Has been a great player for them, but they seem to be going in a different direction. Oliveretti Raka as well. You know, he had a great World Cup there. Very, very strong from the wing. He always sort of fit that third, fourth choice winger option. But I thought he was developing into a great player. Now, they've made it clear that there is still room for him to come back if he performs well at club level. And let's see. He may come back stronger and maybe someone that features in the later areas of this tournament. The door is still open there for him. The draw itself, so they play England and they play Ireland at home. So that's a great run there. They will certainly be two of the top teams in this tournament. And they have Wales away. Overall, it looks and feels like a very favourable draw for what is a young French rugby team. Other keys to victory. So, will Gaultier galvanise this team behind his playing approach and strategy and style? That remains to be seen. Are we going to see them develop and use some of the, success they've had at the development levels and translate that to the top level? That remains to be seen. Can this French rugby team pull off an unlikely couple of victories? Now, in my view, if they're able to get 2 victories against Italy and against Scotland, it's probably a successful tournament for them. But if they can get any of the major scalps, it is an extremely positive sign for this team. And as I mentioned, they've got England at home and Ireland at home, as well as Wales away. So they've got real opportunity in this tournament to do more than most people are expecting. Can they go on and win it? That remains to be seen. Make sure you tune in for my prediction at the end. I'll give you what I think in terms of whether or not they can win. But they certainly don't have a high level of expectation on them in contrast to an English team who has a significant amount of expectation on them. They are going in with nothing to lose, and a French team that has nothing to lose is an extremely dangerous prospect, as we have seen time and time again. I think they're going to do very well in this tournament. I'll give you my full prediction at the end of the series, so make sure you stay tuned for that. That's part 2 done, guys. Part 3 coming up. As I mentioned, we're going in alphabetical order. Next is Ireland. So please, if you like this content, like the video, get involved in the comments down below, guys, and hit subscribe because I'm dropping all of these videos 1 hour at a time throughout the day today. If you're subscribed, you will see the next one. You'll get the notification, and you can follow along with all of my discussion on the Six Nations this year. I'll be back. Ireland is next. Stay tuned for more.